Hello, welcome to the TechHub.training challenge solution for SQL Precision Plain Data Presentation. This challenge was made in conjunction with the SQL Learning Path. This challenge in particular is designed to help users learn the basics of SQL, particularly the select and the from statement, as well as a basic intro to how Microsoft Access works and how you can create queries. So let's go ahead and jump into how I would solve this challenge. So the first step is to go ahead and download the data and open the data in your Microsoft Access. The first thing you'll see here is Microsoft sometimes will block files like this and claim they're a security risk. However, we actually don't need to run any macros to do any of this, so you can simply click the X in the top right corner and ignore that. So the first step of the challenge is to answer a question that you as you're exploring the data, the accounts payable data, on just who the employees are that work with us. We need to write a query displaying all the columns from the employee table. Specifically, we want to select all the columns from the employee table. So first, let's learn how to actually create a query. So to do that, you're going to want to go up here to Create, and then you're going to click Query Design. So this is going to pull up this window which shows, so like this table. This is not actually what we want to see because we want to actually be able to write SQL. So to do that, you're going to come up here in the top left and you're going to click SQL. Alternatively, if you wanted to do this, instead of going up here, you can also look in the bottom right and click this SQL button down here. That'll switch to the SQL view, which will let you go ahead and begin writing your queries. So let's answer this first question. So we need to know the employees that work with us. Particularly, we want to look from the employee table. If you ever want to get an idea of how the tables look, you simply just need to go over to your tables and double click a table. So in this case, let's look at the employee table. So we can see here we've got an employee ID, first name, last name, an employee role ID, and then there's just click to add if you want to add more data. So what we want to do is just write a query that will essentially just show us this information, just in query form. So if we close out of the table, we can just do what's called a select star. So this is just a really easy way in SQL to select all columns from a table. And then if you recall the purpose of the from statement, that's to identify which table we are pulling the data from. So in this case, we're just wanting to pull it from the employee table like so. So then we can go up here, click Query Design, and then click Run. And voila, we have all of our tables, all of our columns for all the tables that we need. So now you need to save the results of your query. So to do this, you just need to hit Control S, and then this Save As box will pop up. Alternatively, you can also just hit the X button here, and it'll ask if you want to save, and you can click Yes, and the same box pops up. So in this case, let's go ahead and save this to Query 1 Employees. That's the query is showing, so we'll go ahead and click OK. And then you can see the query shows up here. All right, let's move on to query number 2. Who are the vendors that buy from us, and how do we contact them? Write a query displaying the vendor ID, company name, and company phone number from the vendor table. Again, it could be helpful for you to just double-click here, get an idea of what the vendor table looks like, and then we'll go ahead and go to Create, Query Design, and then switch to the SQL view. So now we want the vendor ID, the company name, and the phone number column, which is way over here. So we want to get all three of these from the vendor table. So it's as easy as you might think. The select statement is where you're selecting what is going to be displayed. So all you need to do is do vendor ID, company name, and then phone number, like so. And then in your from statement, again, which table are we going to be pulling the data from? So in this case, we want to do from the vendor table. So if we look here, it's going to pull those three columns from the vendor table. So let's go ahead and click Run. And we can see vendor ID, we have a company name, and a phone number. So if you're an accounts payable clerk and you just need to call a vendor, you can just run this query really quick and quickly see all the phone numbers that you need to see. Let's go ahead and save this as query 2, and we'll just call this vendors. All right, perfect. Now let's go ahead and close out of our table and our query and move on to question 3. How frequently do we sell our inventory items? You need to write a query showing the inventory name and the standard expenditure frequency for this item in the inventory table. So let's take a look at the inventory table, because we know that this is going to be our main subject. We can see here we've got a few different columns here. We have an inventory name, preferred vendor, which tells us which vendor we'd like to order this inventory from, what we expect to purchase, and then the standard order quantity, and then our standard expenditure frequency, which is how often we order said inventory item. So, for example, we would want to order horizontal stabilizers annually. So the question is saying, how frequently do we sell? We need to pull the inventory name and the standard expenditure frequency. So just those two columns. So let's go ahead and do that. We're becoming experts at this. So again, we'll click Create, Query Design, SQL, and then we'll get those columns in the select statement. So we'll do inventory name, and then standard expenditure frequency. If you're ever curious on exactly what these columns are called, this is why it's good to have this table pulled up, so you can just quickly reference what it's called here, so you can put it in your select statement. And then we want to do from the inventory table, because that's the table in question. So we do query design, we can click run, and we can see it gets the two things we need. So we can quickly see that we want to order taxi lights bi-monthly or beacon lights bi-weekly. But furthermore, this question actually asks us to rename the standard expenditure frequency column to order frequency, just to make it a little bit more clear on what this is saying, right? We're saying we order this monthly, so it looks a little ugly to have displayed as that. So let's go ahead and look at how we would change that. If you ever want to go ahead and re-edit a query, you can simply go back up to this view and switch to SQL view. You can also go down here and just click the SQL button. So how do we name a column? We just go to where we put this column, and then we call the as statement. So it just says the format of the as statement is column as new column name. So we just need to call this order frequency. Then if we run it, you can see that this renames our column. And that's our query. So we can go ahead and save this to query 3. And then we'll call this inventory frequency. Click OK, and now we can move on to question 4. All right, what type of roles do our employees have? So we just need to write a query showing a list of the employee roles in our accounts payable department. So in this case, we can look at the employee role table. That's what we want to see. And we only care about the roles themselves. We don't care about these IDs. These IDs are important. They are primary keys. And if we were running more complicated queries, we would use these to link. But for the purpose of this query, we only want to know this temporal description. So let's go ahead and do create, query design, switch to a SQL view, and then we can simply put the temporal description in here. And then in our from, we know it's going to be from the employee role table, so we want to make sure to keep it as such. We can go ahead and click run, and this gets us the list that we want. So now we will go ahead and save our query to query 4, and then we're done. So what did we learn from this video? We learned how to use basic SQL to help you learn how a database is structured. We answered some basic questions on a variety of different things, including company employees, our vendors, the inventory frequency, and employee roles. SQL is a good tool to be able to quickly explore your data and be able to pull out the necessary information to do so. Thank you for watching this video, and hopefully you were able to learn something new about SQL, and that you can carry this on in your future endeavors. Thank you.